What if I told you that most gardeners don't fail with hydrangeas because of neglect, but because no one ever explained the science behind what these beautiful plants actually need? Every spring, thousands of gardeners plant hydrangeas with excitement, imagining those full, picture-perfect blooms. But by midsummer, many end up staring at drooping leaves, faded color, or shrubs that just won't flower. It's not from lack of love. It's from small, invisible missteps, the kind that even experienced gardeners make year after year. Hydrangeas are woven into the fabric of American gardens, from the seaside homes of Cape Cod to shady patios in California. Yet, despite their popularity, these elegant shrubs are surprisingly misunderstood. According to USDA Plant Hardiness Research, 2023, more than 60% of hydrangea failures in home gardens stem not from pests or weather, but from soil and watering issues. And Cornell Cooperative Extension reports that most bloom loss happens because of pruning at the wrong time, not poor plant health. So today, we're uncovering the 5 most common hydrangea mistakes and the simple, science-backed fixes that will bring your garden back to life in full, colorful bloom. Mistake number 1, wrong soil, wrong spot. You buy the prettiest hydrangea at the nursery, full of lush green leaves, tiny flower buds forming, practically glowing in the sunlight. You take it home, plant it with care, and for a few weeks it looks perfect. Then midsummer arrives, and suddenly it's all droopy leaves, pale color, and not a single bloom in sight. Sound familiar? Don't worry, you're not alone. The truth is, most hydrangeas struggle not because they're hard to grow, but because they've been planted in the wrong soil or the wrong spot. And once you understand why, the fix is simple and lasting. Hydrangeas love soil that's moist but never soggy. Think of a damp sponge that holds water yet still breathes. Their roots crave both air and hydration. When the soil is too heavy, like clay, water sits around the roots and suffocates them. When it's too sandy, water drains away before the roots have a chance to drink. According to the USDA Soil Structure Study, 2022, clay-heavy soils reduce oxygen flow to roots by nearly 40%, while sandy soils lose moisture 60% faster than loamy, organic-rich mixes. The goal is to find a balance right in between. Before planting, amend your soil with compost, leaf mold, or other organic matter. These natural ingredients improve both drainage and water retention at once. If your yard has heavy clay, raise the bed slightly or mix in shredded bark and compost to loosen structure. If it's sandy, more compost and even a bit of peat moss can help it hold moisture longer. In other words, you're not just planting a hydrangea, you're building it a home. One of the magical things about hydrangeas, especially big leaf hydrangeas, Hydrangea macrophylla, is that the soil actually decides their bloom color. pH below 6.0, acidic equals blue blooms. pH above 7.0, alkaline, equals pink blooms. It's nature's chemistry show, right in your garden. Cornell Horticulture Lab confirms that adding aluminum sulfate can increase blue pigmentation over time, while garden lime gently shifts the soil toward pink tones. Changes don't happen overnight, but within 1 to 2 seasons, you'll start to see your garden respond. If you've never tested your soil before, this is the time. A simple pH test kit from your local garden center or extension office will tell you exactly where your soil stands. It's quick, inexpensive, and one of the smartest gardening habits you can form. Hydrangeas are what horticulturists call picky but forgiving. They thrive in morning sun and afternoon shade. Too much shade, and they'll grow thick green leaves with barely a bloom in sight. Too much direct afternoon sun, and they'll scorch, wilt, and fade before your eyes. The UC Davis Plant Stress Research Program, 2021, found that more than 3 hours of intense afternoon sunlight increases the risk of leaf scorch by nearly 70%. That's why the sweet spot, literally, is a place where the plant gets early sun and protection once the day heats up. If you live in a cooler northern zone, your hydrangeas may enjoy a bit more light. In southern regions, they'll thank you for a shady afternoon break. Think of it like a recipe: right soil, right light, right roots. When you get the environment right, the plant does the rest. Hydrangeas aren't delicate divas. They're just particular guests who bloom best when the conditions feel like home. Once they're settled in their happy place, they'll reward you with full, billowing flowers that stop people in their tracks, season after season. And once your soil's ready, don't relax just yet, because the next mistake might be quietly drying out your blooms before they ever have a chance to shine. Mistake number 2, shallow or inconsistent watering. I used to water my hydrangeas the same way I water my lawn. A quick sprinkle, a pass with the hose, and done. The soil looked dark and damp on the surface, so I thought I was doing great. But a few weeks later, the leaves drooped every afternoon, and the blooms faded faster than they should have. That's when I learned the truth. I had been watering the top inch of soil while the roots below were bone dry. Hydrangeas have deep, fibrous root systems that reach far below the surface. Those roots don't want a daily sip. They need a long, steady drink that reaches at least 8 to 10 inches deep. Shallow watering trains roots to stay near the surface, making them weak and vulnerable to heat and drought. Deep watering encourages roots to grow downward, where the soil stays cooler and more consistent. According to the USDA Agricultural Research Service, ARS, hydrangeas watered deeply just twice a week develop root systems up to 25% deeper and produce blooms that last 40% longer compared to those watered lightly every day. In other words, fewer but better waterings create stronger, longer-living plants. The best way to achieve this is with soaker hoses or drip irrigation lines. They deliver water slowly and directly to the soil, right where the roots need it. Turn them on for about 30 to 45 minutes twice a week, depending on your weather and soil type. You'll use less water overall, and your plants will thrive because they're drinking deeply, not superficially. Mulching is the secret weapon that takes this even further. Add a 2 to 3 inch layer of pine bark, shredded leaves, or composted mulch around the base of your hydrangeas. Mulch keeps the soil evenly moist, prevents evaporation, and insulates roots from temperature swings. Just remember to leave an inch or 2 of space around the crown so air can circulate. Too much mulch pressed against the stem can trap moisture and cause rot. Avoid watering from above whenever possible. Wet leaves are an open invitation for fungal diseases like powdery mildew. If you must use a hose or a sprinkler, water early in the morning so the sun can dry the foliage quickly. Here's one more simple tip that seniors especially appreciate. Set up a timer on your irrigation system. No more dragging hoses or worrying about forgetting. The garden waters itself while you relax on the porch with a glass of iced tea, watching those glossy green leaves soak up the benefits. Once I stopped sprinkling and started soaking, everything changed. My hydrangeas stopped wilting in the afternoon, the leaves stayed lush, and the flowers lasted twice as long. It was like they finally took a deep breath. But even perfect watering won't save your blooms if you're accidentally cutting them off before they have a chance to grow. That's where the next mistake comes in, pruning at the wrong time. Mistake number 3, pruning at the wrong time. You trim back the old wood in early spring, then wait all summer for those big, beautiful blooms that never appear. That was me, standing in the yard with a pair of pruners and a heart full of regret. My hydrangea grew lush, green, and healthy, but not a single flower appeared. It felt like failure. Here's the truth. It wasn't neglect or bad soil. It was timing. Hydrangeas are particular about when you prune them. And once you understand which type you're growing, you'll never lose a season of blooms again. Hydrangeas bloom on 2 types of wood, old and new. That single difference determines everything about when to prune. Old wood bloomers, such as big leaf hydrangeas, Hydrangea macrophylla, and oak leaf hydrangeas, Hydrangea quercifolia, form their flower buds on stems that grew the previous year. Those buds spend the winter waiting to open in early summer. If you cut those stems in late winter or spring, you're literally removing next season's flowers before they have a chance to bloom. New wood bloomers, including smooth hydrangeas, Hydrangea arborescens, and panicle hydrangeas, Hydrangea paniculata, bloom on fresh growth that appears in the current growing season. For these types, pruning in late winter or early spring actually encourages more blooms, because it stimulates new shoots that will flower that same year. According to Cornell Extension Garden Research, 2020, 75% of hydrangea bloom failures in home gardens are caused by pruning at the wrong time. It's one of the most common mistakes, especially for gardeners who assume all hydrangeas behave the same way. The fix is simple once you know the rules. For old wood types, prune immediately after flowering, usually in late summer or early fall. Remove only the spent blooms and weak stems, leaving the healthy growth intact so it can set buds for next year. For new wood types, prune in late winter or early spring, cutting back to strong buds or even close to the ground if you want to control size. These plants are forgiving and will regrow fast with even bigger flower clusters. If you're not sure which kind you have, there's an easy clue. Watch when your hydrangea blooms. If it flowers early in summer, June, or early July, it's most likely an old wood type. If it blooms later, July through September, it's probably a new wood variety. Here's a pro tip. When you plant your hydrangeas, label them clearly by type. A small weatherproof tag, now, will save you years of confusion later. Even experienced gardeners can forget which is which once the leaves fall. Future you will be grateful. And don't be too hard on yourself if you've pruned at the wrong time. Every gardener has made this mistake once. It's practically a rite of passage. I still remember my first big leaf hydrangea, the one that bloomed with nothing but green leaves all summer, mocking me from the corner of the yard. I didn't know it then, but that plant was teaching me patience and timing. Once you get pruning right, hydrangeas reward you generously. Each year's growth builds on the last, producing bigger, fuller blooms with minimal effort. So you've mastered the soil, nailed the watering routine, and finally learned the secret of pruning. But there's still one silent culprit that might be holding your hydrangeas back: what you're feeding them. Let's talk about fertilizer and how the wrong mix can turn flowers into nothing but leaves. Mistake number 4: over-fertilizing and ignoring soil pH. Sometimes the worst thing we do for our plants is love them too much. You feed, water, and nurture them daily, and still, the blooms refuse to appear. That's often the case with hydrangeas that are overfed. They look lush and full of green leaves, but they stubbornly hold back their flowers. Here's the science behind it. Hydrangeas are moderate feeders, not heavy eaters. When you give them too much nitrogen, especially from lawn fertilizers, the plant directs all its energy toward leaf and stem growth instead of flower production. The result? Beautiful foliage and zero blooms. The USDA Soil Fertility Report 2021 found that excessive nitrogen can delay flower bud formation in ornamental shrubs by up to 6 weeks. That's half your growing season gone before you see any color. So while it's tempting to give your hydrangeas a boost, more fertilizer isn't better. It's actually working against you. What they truly need is balance. Choose a slow-release, balanced fertilizer such as a 10, 10, 10, or 14, 14, 14 formula. These numbers represent nitrogen for leaves, phosphorus for roots and flowers, and potassium for overall strength. Apply it once in early spring as the plant wakes up, and, if needed, again in midsummer when new growth appears. That's it. Hydrangeas don't require constant feeding. They prefer a steady diet over a heavy meal. And avoid lawn fertilizer at all costs. Those high nitrogen blends are designed for grass, not flowering shrubs. One application can push your hydrangea into overdrive, flooding it with leaves and starving the buds that produce flowers. Now let's revisit soil pH, one of the most fascinating aspects of hydrangea care. We often talk about pH for bloom color, blue in acidic soil, pink in alkaline, but it also affects how efficiently plants absorb nutrients. According to the UC Davis Soil Chemistry Lab, maintaining a slightly acidic pH between 6.0 and 6.5 improves nutrient uptake efficiency by up to 35%. That means even if your soil is rich, your hydrangea won't benefit if the pH is off balance. If you've ever seen yellowing leaves or weak blooms despite good fertilizer, the culprit might be pH, not nutrition. Test your soil once or twice a year, especially before feeding, and adjust gently using natural amendments. Add aluminum sulfate to lower pH for blue blooms, or garden lime to raise it for pink. These shifts take a full growing season to show, but are worth the patience. For gardeners who prefer a softer touch, try organic feeding methods. Compost tea, fish emulsion, or a thin layer of worm castings around the base provide slow, natural nutrition while improving soil health. They're easier on both your plants and the planet. Healthy soil is quiet power. When you feed the soil, not just the plant, it rewards you tenfold with lasting strength, resilience, and beauty. Now for the one mistake most gardeners don't notice until it's too late, and it can take years to fix. Mistake number 5, planting too deep or too close. You dig a hole, drop the hydrangea in, cover it up, and step back, proud of your work. But here's the thing, even being off by an inch can mean years of struggle. It's one of the easiest mistakes to make and one of the hardest to fix later. Hydrangeas look tough once they're in the ground, but their health depends entirely on one crucial detail: the position of the crown, the point where the stems meet the roots. That crown needs to sit exactly flush with the soil surface, not buried below it. If it's too deep, moisture collects around the base, suffocating the plant and encouraging disease. The USDA Plant Pathology Division found that hydrangeas planted even 1 inch too deep showed a 60% higher rate of root rot within the first 2 years. That's because buried crowns stay too wet for too long, creating the perfect conditions for fungal decay. The fix is simple. When you plant, make sure the top of the root ball is level with the ground, not below it. After backfilling, press the soil gently to remove air pockets and water deeply to help the roots settle naturally. Then there's the issue of spacing, something gardeners often underestimate because young plants look small at first. But give them time, and hydrangeas can double or triple in size. Crowding them too close together restricts airflow, traps moisture between leaves, and invites mildew and leaf spot. According to Cornell Cooperative Extension, proper spacing depends on the variety. Big leaf hydrangeas, Hydrangea macrophylla 3 to 4 feet apart. Panicle hydrangeas, Hydrangea paniculata 6 to 10 feet apart. Smooth and oak leaf hydrangeas, generally 4 to 6 feet apart. That space might seem excessive when you first plant, but it's essential for good air circulation and long-term health. Mature shrubs with room to breathe are less prone to disease and develop stronger root systems. I learned this lesson the hard way. Early in my gardening days, I planted 3 hydrangeas in a tight triangle to create an instant garden look. The first year, they were perfect, lush green, full of promise. But by year 2, the middle plants started showing yellow leaves and mildew on the undersides. By the 3rd year, all 3 were struggling, fighting for light, air, and nutrients. I finally dug them up, spaced them properly, and by the following summer, they looked brand new, full, balanced, and blooming again. For senior gardeners, or anyone looking to make planting easier, here's a simple trick. Mark your spacing with rope or stakes before digging. It helps visualize how big the plants will grow and saves the strain of replanting later. Hydrangeas need breathing room, just like we do. Give them space to stretch their roots and branches, and they'll reward you with stronger growth and bigger, more consistent blooms every summer. Now that you know the mistakes to avoid, it's time to lock in the easy, science-backed habits that make hydrangeas thrive year after year. 6 proven habits for lifelong blooms. After all the trial and error, it turns out that thriving hydrangeas come down to a simple rhythm. 6 small habits that make all the difference between a struggling plant and one that blooms effortlessly year after year. 1. Soil first. Test your soil annually. Amend with compost or organic matter to maintain that ideal mix of moisture retention and drainage. Healthy soil is the quiet foundation of every successful hydrangea. 2. Water deep. Skip the daily sprinkle. Give your hydrangeas a slow, deep soak twice a week so the water reaches 8 to 10 inches down. Deep roots mean stronger, more drought-tolerant plants. 3. Light balance. Morning sun, afternoon shade. That's the sweet spot. Too much direct heat burns leaves. Too little light, and you'll get green growth without flowers. 4. Prune smart. Know your hydrangea type before cutting. Old wood bloomers should be pruned right after flowering. New wood types can be pruned in late winter or early spring. Timing is everything. 5. Feed steady. Use a balanced, slow-release fertilizer in spring and midsummer. Keep an eye on soil pH. Slightly acidic soil, around 6.0 to 6.5, helps your hydrangea absorb nutrients efficiently and control bloom color naturally. 6. Space wisely. Keep the crown at soil level when planting and give each shrub room to grow, anywhere from 3 to 10 feet apart, depending on variety. Good airflow prevents disease and promotes fuller blooms. According to UC Cooperative Extension 2022, gardeners who follow consistent care routines, proper watering, pruning, and soil management reduce hydrangea stress markers by nearly 50% and see up to a 35% increase in bloom volume. The best part? Once established, hydrangeas are surprisingly low maintenance. They don't demand perfection, just understanding. When you match their rhythm, they'll reward you year after year with blooms that stop you in your tracks. Why hydrangeas respond this way? If you've ever wondered why hydrangeas seem so sensitive, thriving one season and struggling the next, the answer lies deep in their biology. According to the USDA Climate Hub 2023, hydrangeas regulate moisture through their exceptionally large leaf surface area. Those broad leaves help them pull in sunlight efficiently in moderate light, but they also lose water quickly under full sun. That's why afternoon shade isn't just a comfort. It's a survival mechanism. The Cornell Plant Physiology Department found that successful bloom development depends on cool night cycles between 55 to 60 degrees Fahrenheit. During these cooler hours, the plant directs energy to forming strong buds. When nights stay too warm, bud formation slows and flower size decreases. Meanwhile, the UC Davis Botany Department reports that soil biology plays a major role in hydrangea health. Balanced microbial activity, the natural bacteria and fungi living in healthy soil, improves disease resistance by up to 45%. In other words, your compost pile might be doing more for your hydrangeas than you realize. Hydrangeas are teachers of balance, moisture, sunlight, and patience. Treat them as living systems, not decorations, and they'll reward you endlessly with color, growth, and grace that lasts for decades. Gardening teaches us humility. Every hydrangea you plant is a quiet conversation between soil, sun, and care. The mistakes we make aren't failures. They're part of the rhythm of learning. Centuries ago, gardeners didn't have soil tests or pH kits. They had time, observation, and the willingness to try again. That's still what matters most today. So, start where you are. Loosen your soil, water deeply, give your plants room to breathe. Before long, you'll step outside one soft summer morning and see what every gardener lives for. Blooms so full and vibrant, they make you stop and smile. Every petal becomes a reminder that good gardening isn't about perfection. It's about patience, persistence, and a quiet faith that growth always returns. Keep growing, keep smiling, and remember, every bloom is living proof that care and time still matter.